Доброго дня, це медіа-центр.
Good afternoon, this is Media Center Ukraine, Odessa. We are starting our working today with the panel discussion from the press conference dedicated to the topic what we should expect in winter. Will there be a counteroffensive sabotage work of Russian forces? And we have invited today the military specialists, namely Stanislav Mankov, aviation technical specialist, Natalya, Gumenyuk, head of the Joint Coordination Press Center of the Defense Forces of Southern Ukraine, Andrii Savchenko, military expert, and online Oleksandr Kovalenko, coordinator of the Information Resistance Group, leading expert of Ukrainian Center for the Study of Security Problems, named after Dmytro Tymchuk. I'd like to welcome Mr. Kovalenko. Thank you for joining us online. The first topic to discuss is the next one. How will the tactics of the defense forces of Ukraine be changed due to the new Western-made weapons we're expecting in the nearest future? Let's start with Mr. Savchenko. Today we should speak not only about the new Western-made weapons, but also about the plans of the Russian Federation, how it plans to organize hostilities this year. On the 21st of December, there was the meeting of the representatives of the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation that defined the aims for this year. The aims are unchanged. So this is to continue the war with Ukraine, to increase the number of their soldiers, and not only to keep the occupied territories, but also offensive. That's why they now are reforming their armed forces, and we should expect the aggression from the Russian Federation in 2023. Of course, the Western-made weapons are very helpful to us, and we are all well aware of this. Today, we can see that the Russian fleet has been fully neutralized when it comes to coastal operations. So these are different types of activities, and they can only attack us with the missiles. And thanks to Neptune weapons that we have, and thanks to cruise missiles, anti-vessels cruise missiles that are supplied by the West. The Western weaponry have also allowed us to neutralize the aircraft of our enemy, and we should expect the strengthening of our air defense systems with the Patriots. That will significantly increase our anti-aircraft capacity. We can see that the weaponry supplied by our Western partners when it comes to middle-range air defense systems that prove to be quite effective. And on the other hand, the enemy can still attack us without us being able to reach them. When it comes to challenging tanks, these are still the part of the dialogue with the Great Britain, and we hope that we will finally supply these tanks to us. But the numbers will not be large. So they've mentioned the amount of 10 tanks, but this is only one squadron, so it cannot significantly change the tactics of our operations. There are also talks about supplying Leopard tanks. This question has not been solved yet, and we can see that the Germany keeps changing its opinion. So let's discuss it after we receive these tanks. Then we can speak about the changes of our tactics. The weaponry that we have now and as for the numbers of the ammunitions and missiles we get, this is more or less enough to restrain the enemy's aggression, and it also allows us to have offensive operations. And last year we had one such offensive near Kharkiv, and that operation proved that we can not only use the Western weaponry, but we can also make decisions, we can organize such operations, and to be successful with them. So when it comes to new Western-made weapons that we can expect this year, we can't say that they can significantly change the tactics and strategy of our operations. I don't see this. Let's give the floor to Mr. Kovalenko and then to Ms. Gumenyuk. Good afternoon. As for weapons that we have already received and are receiving, the last package of the United States, this is quite interesting to discuss because when we speak about the part of the package to 3 billion USD, then we can see that this package allows us to form the full-fledged assault group, assault squadron, and this should we keep in mind. As for the weapons that we are getting now, this is Marble, Bradley, AMX-10RC. What is this all about? This is like light and middle armored vehicles, and Bradley is considered one of the best in the world. But if we speak about this in complex, then we will have the weapon needed for quick assault operations, which is very important for mobile local offensive operations. And Kharkiv proved such tactics to be efficient because the mobility and speed was of the biggest importance. The Russian occupiers cannot adequately respond to such offensive and the organized effective protection lines near Kharkiv. That's why the amount of such light and mid-armored vehicles is very important, because in winter the hostilities are usually put on the break, but we can see there are no breaks, neither from the side of our enemies nor from the side of the Ukrainian armed forces. And we can see that in some places there are already conditions formed for counteroffensive of Ukrainian forces. Some of the springboards prove this. When should we expect this? This is quite a different discussion, as well as the facts that precondition this. But we now have enough weaponry that can ensure the significant success coefficient of our operations. Many now speak about tanks. There are discussions ongoing, and this is quite true. Ukraine is a big country that has different types of landscapes. And the temporarily occupied territories that are now controlled by the Russian Federation have different type of landscapes, and we should speak about different liberation scenarios. And when it comes to tanks, we can't use tanks in all localities. But as the offensive element, of course, we need them. After, in 2020, namely in December, we learned that Ukraine would get Patriot complexes, Patriot systems. So the system that everyone told us we would not be able to receive at the beginning of the war. So they told us that they would never supply this to Ukraine. But now we know that we will definitely get to the system. The same is for tanks, and I believe that the issue will be solved in the nearest future in 2023. And we can say that in 2023, the counteroffensive will be more effective because all the teams will go under training and will improve their capacity in terms of tank operation. Oleksandr, we have some connection issues. Hopefully, it won't be so bad. Ms. Gumenyuk, can you share your opinion? First of all, I would like to welcome everyone. Today is the International Thank You Day, and I would like to thank everyone who supports the armed forces of Ukraine, who provides aids, and who stands with us shoulder to shoulder, who helps us to analyze the situation to make the relevant decisions. As for the prospects, first of all, we should speak about our mood, because before the offensive, we should be in the mood. And we have named this year a victorious year, but this is the activity plan. We cannot speak about the precise facts, so I don't want everyone to hate me for saying this, but we should have proper understanding, because this is our activity plans. We should make efforts to make this year victorious, and we should work a lot. When it comes to the temporarily occupied territories, we can say that there is still a lot to be done. And it has been properly mentioned that we should understand the geography of the regions, the landscapes of the regions, and we should understand that we should need different methods and approaches to implement our activity plan. That's why we will focus on the operative and creative thought of our comment, and not only on the weapons. Of course, we need weapons, so we should need this properly, and we have already proved that we can surprise the whole world with how we use these weapons. We can even surprise those who produced this weaponry. The geography of the territories that we should liberate shall be taken into consideration, but we should also remember that we have a lot of our people and the infrastructure facilities on those territories, and contrary to the enemy, we cannot destroy this. We have mentioned numerous times that the process of the implementation of the decision and the usage of the weaponries is quite slow. But this is due to the fact that we try not to destroy infrastructure facilities as much as it is possible when it comes to the combat activities. That's why we need long-range weaponry, because in this war, in the war like we have in Ukraine, there is a very important process in destroying of the enemy's forces before offensive. So now we speak about the attacking the rear, the stockpiles, the supplies, the logistics, and the enemy's pipelines. Secondly, we should remember about the protection, including the air protection, because the terrorist country uses missiles and drones to fight the civilians. And the third issue is the regional weaponry. And we believe that we will be able to use these biological squadrons because of the warmer weather. These are insects and mosquitoes our enemy is so afraid of. Thank you. I would like now to address Mr. Mankov, the aviation technical specialist. What else can we expect here? Because we know about the missile systems that have been developed since 1970s and the 1980s. Can you tell us about this and some modern weaponry? Thank you. I would like to focus on the fact that in the last published package of the United States government, we can see that it's not only about the Western-made weaponry like NASAMS and Patriot, but we can also see there the complex approach, namely the combination of old Soviet weaponry and the Western-made weapons. And now I'm speaking about Sea Sparrow missiles that will be used in our air defense systems, the Buk air defense system to be precise. That was quite an interesting piece of information. And there were a lot of doubts if it is possible at all. But these projects already exist, and in 2012 it was offered to Poland to modernize the missiles of that family with their air defense complexes of Kup type, which is not that modern as Buk type system. So the time will show, will it be efficient in our case. I would also like to emphasize that in the last quarter of 2022, it was announced that Sea King type systems would be supplied to Ukraine. That was announced by the Great Britain. And I hope that this aviation weapon will be only the first step, and we should expect more in the future. Yes, first, these helicopters will not be enough for us, but we will be able to use them to train the engineers, the pilots, and the whole team that will work with such helicopters. The 8 package also envisages 4 Thais missiles like Zun. These are non-operative missiles, and theoretically they cannot be used with our aircraft. But as the practice shows, we have already proved to be efficient in combining our aviation technique and the Western-made weapons. Such missiles has a laser targeting module that allows us to make these missiles highly precise weapons. This is all on my side. As for this package of 8. Thank you. Do we have any questions from the floor? Yes, thank you. Good morning, Mikhailo Betsurkiv, CNN Opinion. I will ask the question in English.
The role of Israel has been criticized. It's believed that they could be doing more to assist Ukraine. Do you feel that Israel, for example, could target locations in Iran where they are producing the drones that Russia is using to target Ukrainian infrastructure? Would you like to see that happen?
Is it a question to everybody?
Yes.
Or to everybody?
Whoever wants to answer.
Тоді так, хто хоче.
Well, who wants to answer this question? Oleksandr, Andrii, Stanislav, or Natalya? I would like to say that today the West provides us significant support. Without the Western support, we will not be able to be as successful as we are now. This is due to the fact that they supply weaponry and they also provide us different aid, like sanctions, and also outside Ukraine. So in those places where Ukraine cannot take measures. That's why I believe that Israel can help Ukraine, but it's of course must not help Ukraine, but can help Ukraine to counter-fight the activities of Iran with regard to supply of drones into the Russian Federation. And I think that Ukrainians, as the people, will support such a decision of the Israeli government.
Recently, a BBC correspondent went to the front lines in Bakhmut and spoke to Ukrainian servicemen. They said that they were not satisfied with the guns they're using. They said the equipment is outdated. It works fine and does the job, but it can be better. They said, if we had more equipment and modern weapons, we would be able to destroy more targets, which would make things much easier for our infantry. Are there plans to update the guns, the weapons that the soldiers are using on the front lines? Because they said it's outdated. Дякую.
Oleksandr, I think that you can answer the question, and I will give floor to Ms. Gumenyuk. I can answer both questions. There is quite an interesting aspect with regard to the production of drones in Iran. And the production is located in quite difficult localities. Sometimes we can speak about underground factories. That's why for Israel it will be quite a significant and difficult task to destroy these factories because they will need to use Sahal aircraft to enter the airspace of Iran. And of course, we understand that then can expect losses, and they are not ready to risk like this because they understand the problem of kamikaze drones because these drones can be supplied to terrorist organizations which are supported by Iran. So Israel is interested in this, but Israel is very careful in demonstrating this interest. So it is unofficial. As for the guns, as for the weapon, of course, we understand that the military-industrial complex of Ukraine is in different condition, not like it was before the 24th of February. And we cannot modernize guns by ourselves. It is quite difficult, and this is quite a significant problem. And the support of our international partners and the volumes of this support also impact the efficiency of the armed forces of Ukraine. That's why we should speak about the combined approach. And what can Ukraine do now? This is one question, and the support of our international partners is the second question. If there is the lack of some weaponry or some guns, we should first understand whether Ukraine can produce or update this. And the second question, why our international partners cannot provide enough guns to our servicemen. Thank you. Can you add something? Yes. As for the conclusion, basing on the communication with the servicemen in a specific spot. We cannot speak about some general conclusion basing on the opinion of a group of servicemen. And we already saw that with the counteroffensive in Kherson Oblast, the correspondent of the important of the well-known outlet communicated with the trenches and with the servicemen in the trenches who said that they saw no counteroffensive in Kherson Oblast. The same is for this situation. Of course, I understand that there can be a lack of some modern guns for some specific positions, but we cannot speak about general conclusions. The work is ongoing. We do everything possible to use the guns which can be efficient at a certain part of the front line. But we should also all the time move these guns, these systems. For example, the situation like this with HIMARS, because we move them all the time and our enemy cannot find them. These are the specifics of the hybrid war, and unfortunately, not always the servicemen of some of the specific unit are well aware of how and where guns are used. We do everything possible to provide our servicemen with the most modern guns. So we have volunteer centers working with this, the government work with this, and also the servicemen on the front line can also improve these guns. And this is also the history and the fact of our war. One more question. ICTV channel, I have the question to Mr. Mankov. The British intelligence has recently said that the Russian now use the modern Su-57 fighter jets in Ukraine. Do you have any information how they use them and what missiles did they use? So, we knew about the use of these fighter jets, if I'm not mistaken, in July. There were certain rumors that such aircraft was used by Russians. And if we compare this with the range of missiles in the Russian Federation, we have not seen some significant impact of Su-57. The missile Ha-59 Mk2, we know about this missile as well, which is described by Russian as the most modern missile that they use with these fighter jets. And as far as we know, that they do not use this weaponry closer to the front line, and we know that they are not unable to carry out functions as expected. But perhaps we should expect more efficient usage of this aircraft in the nearest future, but now this is some kind of a demonstrative operation. Thank you. I have the next question to you. As for missile attacks of the rare cities like Odessa, at the beginning, we have the information that Russians were running out of missiles. Yes, now we have not so many missile attacks, but it seems to me that the reason is not that there is a lack of missiles. What is your opinion about the stockpiles of missiles that Russia have? This is the question to you and also to Mr. Savchenko. Perhaps you also have some information. Okay, I can start. First of all, we should understand that the range of long-distance missiles that our enemy has is quite diversified, and it is not correct to say that they have run out of some missiles, like caliber missiles and missiles like Ha-101 are still produced in Russia, and they will produce them in the future. We cannot say that they will run out of them. But we can say that the frequency of missile attacks has significantly decreased comparing to the first months of the full-scale war. We can also say that the range of missiles has been limited. We do not see the Iskander cruise missiles. They use them now, but quite rarely. And we also have other indicators showing that there is a lack of missiles in Russia, because they start using non-specific systems to attack land targets. I now speak about S-300 air defense. They can be used for this, but that was not their original purpose. And they also use the marine missiles to attack land objects. And they also use the Ha-22 missiles. They try to modernize them and to launch them. The fact that they use such difficult in maintenance and dangerous missiles as Ha-22 demonstrates that there is a lack of modern missiles in the Russian army. Mr. Savchenko, the floor is yours. I would like first to explain what is meant by the long-range cruise missile. This missile has an engine. It is charged. It has projectile, and it also has so-called brains, the system that lead the missile to the point defined by the operator. Russia still produces missiles. They face no challenges with this. If they need to increase the number of the produced missiles, they will have the second and the third shift on their plans. But they will have the problems with the so-called missile brains. And if they are able to solve this issue, this will increase and define the number of missiles they will launch again Ukraine. And we should also remember that there is Belarus, which is the ally of Russia and our enemy. They also have the factories that can produce missile for multiple launch systems and for the air defense. So they can also they can also use this factory to produce long-range missiles. And then again, we should remember about technologies, about the so-called missile brains, to bring missiles to the point they need. But the Russian Federation can go back to the Soviet systems when they use different types of systems. These systems are inertial. They are not that precise, and they cannot target the object needed. But anyway, they can be used for attack to make us, so to say, nervous. So that's why we should not speak about the decreased number of missiles in the Russian Federation. We can speak about the decreased quality, but not quantity. And of course, everything depends on our Western partners and on their sanctions that hinder the supply of new Western technologies to Russia. Thank you. We need to finalize our discussion. This is our last topic for the discussion, and I hope that after this, our speakers will be able to talk to journalists. But I would like to ask the last question, the possible counteroffensive. This is the question to Mr. Kovalenko. Is it possible? Do you see any indicators of counteroffensive, as you mentioned at the beginning? The counteroffensive will be prepared for every location until we fully liberate our territory. And after liberating the new territory, every new territory, we starting preparing to the liberation of the next one. We have the contact line in Luhansk and Donetsk Oblast, and the Zaporizhia Oblast is partially occupied, and the left bank, Kherson Oblast. These locations are potential territories for future liberation. Each of these territory has its own specifics, which should be taken into consideration. And the level of the level of preparation of counteroffensive is different for different territories. So we should speak about the prepared conditions, the resources the armed forces of Ukraine have to liberate some specific territory. Again, I'm now talking about Luhansk, Donetsk Oblast, part of Zaporizhia Oblast, and the part of Kherson Oblast, left bank territories. And only the General Staff of Ukraine knows what is being prepared. The winter is not an obstacle for this. For some locations, the winter is more efficient for a counteroffensive. This is the fact. And I believe that by the end of the winter period in 2023, we will be able to see counteroffensive operations of the armed forces of Ukraine because the preconditions are there. And I believe that the General Staff of Ukraine will use these opportunities to the maximum extent possible. Thank you. I would also like to ask Ms. Gumenyuk, not as a representative of the defense forces of the southern Ukraine. So, is counteroffensive possible? Are there any indicators? What we can hope for? I would like to remind you what we mean by counteroffensive. Everyone look forward for some action, for some activities that can be beautifully shot. But I would like to remind that a counteroffensive operation, this is to make our enemy tired. If you calculate the number of missile attacks of the rear of the enemy, you will understand that the counteroffensive has already started, and it will be the same as for the Kherson Oblast. So the right bank of the Kherson Oblast has already been liberated. The same will be here. There will be a methodological work to destroy the forces and the stocks of our enemy. This is already a counteroffensive. There is now an active defense of some parts of the front line. And this is also the element of military operations. The fight for Kinburg is already a counteroffensive because the enemy tries to organize their positions there. Everywhere where they try to do this, we create for them unfavorable conditions, and we will use it to the maximum extent possible together with the weather conditions. Thank you for being with us. Oleksandr, thank you for joining us online, and we hope to see you here personally offline. Now we will finalize our panel discussion, but I think that all the journalists who are here now will be able to communicate with our guests afterwards. Our next briefing will be dedicated to the military situation in Kherson. We will have with us 12:30 Halina Luhava, who will share what's going on with the city. Stay with us.